Okay, and I'll log in from scratch just to so you can see the process. The very first time you let me share my screen. And let me shrink it down so it will fit. Actually, I guess I have it underneath too. So the location for the site is SUNYCreate.cloud. And this is actually a word. You do have to put in all the letters, it turns out. SUNYCreate.cloud. There we go. And the first, well, whenever you use it, if you're going to go through this interface, you have to log in. And to log in, you would click on dashboard. And then the very first time you would do this, it would prompt you well, I don't have that same view right now, but it would ask you to log in using your Oswego credentials. I'm already logged in. But then once you get logged in, it's going to ask you to fill out a form asking for your intended use. That gets sent to me, and then I approve the account as soon as I get notified of that. That notification process right now is still manual, and Ed Beck is handling that. So when he sees someone new comes in, he sends me an email, and then I go in and they change the account. And then once your account is created, it's going to ask you for a domain name or for the subdomain name. And essentially what you do is you're creating a subdomain for your specific server space. And I chose Oswego Micro because I was thinking about doing something for microeconomics at the time. But once you lock that in, once you choose that, that's the first part of your URL that is going to be there from then on. So you have to choose that pretty carefully. So pick a name that you're going to be comfortable with, because it's something we can't change on our side. It could be changed by the people at Reclaim Hosting who provide the server space, but that's something that is out of our control, and it does require some intervention. So pick a name that you're going to be happy with. And my username then becomes Oswego MI. So picking a short name, which is easy, is probably a useful thing. Now, when you click on dashboard, is this what you see on your screen?
So right now, no. What I see still is I'm going back to it. It's like, it's weird because I can get to see like in the top left where it's like you see theme options, admin, all that stuff. I can access that, but when I click on dashboard on the SUNYCreate site, it still brings me to, let's see if it'll work now. It's spinning. It still brings me to the interest form.
That's odd. Let me go back in.
Yeah.
And let me see if the changes took place. I'm going to go to the users, all users, and then I'm going to search for your name. It looks like most people are coming up as often. Maybe that's what I need to change. Huh? Did I misspell
it? Yeah, Vickery.
Okay. I knew that, being a little dyslexic here, because I just did find it. There we go. Okay. And you are listed as an editor, which, okay, let me select you and do a bulk action of change the role to, I thought it was editor, but maybe let's try author and see if that will help. Now, try refreshing the screen and see if that makes a difference.
I did log out and then closed, or I opened up a new, let's see, it's spinning. Aha, yes, I get choose your domain.
Okay, I must have made a mistake when I did that. Okay. So now pick that name. Actually, what might be more useful is if you share your screen,
Sure.
because that way we can go through the process of someone creating this. So I messed up. I gave you the wrong level of status. I normally look that up, but I was trying to do it from memory and messed up. So that's the name that you have to choose carefully.
Okay. So, and I guess here's a good question about this. If I am thinking about this for archives and special collections versus for myself, what would be suggested?
You could use archives or
Okay.
as we go archives, because remember, this is a shared resource across SUNY. So you might want to do something like OSW _ archives or something that would identify it. Now, it's possible to come up with a separate name. You know, if the institution or the department wanted to budget it, you could buy a domain name and link it to this account so no one would actually see this. And in some ways that would be better, because then you would have a name that would be portable if you move from one site to another. So
I'm going to use OSW _ archives, knowing that Oswego is known as OSW. Like, yep. And then just as a general archives will be fine. All right.
Okay.
So I'll continue there. Is not valid. Enter only the part after. Oh, and then include. So I'm going to take out the underscore and try it that way.
That shouldn't make a difference, but okay.
Unless if maybe Catherine created it. OSW _ archives, but
okay. In any case, there you
it
go.
Is set up.
Now you have it. Maybe it doesn't allow that. I don't remember the rules, but
yeah.
And now sign up.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm hoping that it's going. Yep.
Okay. And now let me look back at my end.
Sure. I'll stop sharing.
Because I thought you had already gone through this stage.
Yeah.
That is odd. And I'm going to go back to the admin thing. I'm not sharing.
See. Oh, okay.
Do you have it now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because your role had already been changed. So This is what should happen after you get approved, but you have already been approved. So now you have, so now you can first either allow or deny them the ability to collect data on how it's working and whether things crash and so forth.
Yeah.
The most commonly used tools are at the top. WordPress by far is a most commonly used tool, in general on reclaim hosting. But I think since you're working with archives, Omeka is one of the things that was talked about. And basically, this is server space that lets you automatically install any of these tools on your server space under that domain name. So if you want to install your own instance of Omeka, all you have to do is click on that. And then you could choose, because there's nothing else there at this point, install this application. Now, if you want to create a subdomain, if you want to create, a different URL where it would have that full thing and then / and then a specific archive, you could add it at this stage, or you could just leave it. If that's the only thing you're going to be using here, you could just leave it optional and then just accept the license agreement. And I would probably update to any new version. They're doing this on the back end. It's nice to do that. And doing automatic backups is probably a good strategy. And I would leave those alone. They're randomly generated usernames and passwords. And as long as you enter through this, you don't ever have to remember them, which is kind of nice. It's storing it in this interface. And I think if you scroll down just a little further, you get the install. The defaults usually work pretty well. So just click install now, and that will, or you could give it a title. You probably should for the title.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking of
Could be
some sort of,
SUNY Oswego archives. You can always change it later, I think.
okay. Yeah. And what I'm going to do, just because I know that this is being recorded, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. And I'm going to generate a new administrator username and password.
Oh, well, except the password was hidden.
Okay.
Wasn't it? I think.
Yes, you're right. We never did a show password, so I'm going to press install here now, and then I'll go back to sharing.
I wasn't even thinking about that, and normally I do. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. All right.
Okay, and now basically it's installing a whole package, which used to be something you'd have to do by downloading the thing, run it on a Linux server or whatever you're using. But this automates the whole process. It creates all the files, all the include files are automatically put in there, and a backup system is set up, and it makes it really easy to manage servers. Okay, and now because you've done it through here, if you click on the Oswego SUNYCreate iCloud/admin, that will take you right in as the logged in administrator. I thought.
it may be something where for the very first time, no.
I'm
sure
with WordPress it does.
Okay.
Here, what you may want to do is stop sharing, grab that user ID, go back, grab the user ID, paste it in a notepad or something, and then unhide the password, and then grab that and put those in. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
With WordPress, you can log in directly.
Let's see, security. I'm going to see if I can find the password here. Password manager. And let's see if I can find it in my passwords. I don't know if it's going to be Omeka. Nope.
Well, if you go back to that screen, it should tell you. In other words, you may have to back up a step, back up out of this, back to the, back up in the browser to the page where right before you clicked on that link.
All right, I'll share my screen again. Oh, this one here.
Yeah. So
that created a new one, I think.
Okay, that's fine. So you could use that as the administrator.
There it is.
And then stop sharing, and then click on, when you're not sharing, click on the show password.
Got it. Okay. So let's.
And in fact, you could generate a new one if you want, in the interest of security, but then use that one.
Let's see.
And you could change the admin name too if you want to.
Yeah. I just want to see if it's in here at all by chance.
Probably not, because you haven't actually used it on the login screen yet.
Ah, okay. Take this, copy that, put that, go forward, admin. Password manager. Say, remember me. Save. Now I'm in.
Okay. And now you just use it.
Wonderful.
I haven't worked with Omeka too much, but and you can change the theme, I believe, if you don't like the layout. I think. Yeah, there you go. So you could also, yeah, you could look at ones from the theme collect directory until you find one that works well with what you want to do, and then you can customize it.
Okay.
It's very much like WordPress that way. And then basically you just upload items, which, you know, are could be images, documents, and so forth.
Yep. Okay. This is good.
So you probably want to start with collections and then add items to the collections.
Yep. Yep. And have everything that's structured in this way.
Mhm.
Yep. So one of the things, I'll stop sharing here real quick, just that knowing that I'm in here in SUNYCreate. One of the things that we're looking to use it for is Omeka, with some of the additional plugins, can be used to help transcribe documents. Like users would provide their own transcriptions, and then it's all crowdsourced and so on and so forth. So
Right.
that's why we were very interested in figuring out, is there a way for us to set up Omeka, which requires a network server, which requires everything that goes on that we don't.
And now
really
you've
have.
got it. And now that you have it, you can add the plugins, and you're the administrator of the system now. So
So then, what else? Because I'm slightly more familiar with Omeka and what we're going to be using it for. But what else is like
SUNYCreate?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to go back to share your screen, we can take a look.
Okay.
There's pretty much anything you could host on a web server, you can put there. You can go back to application browser now to see what else is there. Right at the top right.
Yeah. Okay.
And these are the things that are automatically set up to install.
Okay.
So WordPress, again, by far is the most commonly used, and most of the web is actually running on WordPress right now. The CMS things there are all customized versions of WordPress with a given set of tools and themes and add-ons for specific purposes to support writing or another form of collections. They're all, you can create your own customized version of WordPress with a given mix of tools and save it as one of those CMS files. So those are commonly used. The Commons in a Box is something that was actually developed, I believe, at City University, and it's essentially an installation which creates a digital commons, which is used in essentially you're creating a digital commons for the university. So you could create something for Oswego here that has the equivalent of WordPress and a whole host of other things. Yeah, it's a team developed at the Graduate Center. So basically it's a way for sharing documents, for sharing writing, for creating digital portfolios, and a whole host of other tools. So it's basically a collection of tools that lets you run a digital commons in some form or another. I'm not sure what OHMS viewer is, but if you click on it, it would describe it.
Oh.
An oral history. There we go. So it's an oral history metadata synchronizer.
Yeah. Okay.
That could also be an interesting thing for archives if you have any, recordings there.
We've spent this whole past semester finishing up digitizing the oral histories that we have. And there's 300 of them, of the recordings. And they're all local here. They were all started basically like in the early 70s all the way up through the 80s into the early 90s. So yeah.
Okay. So I mean, you might actually be able to do that through Omeka in some way, but this is designed for the specific purpose. So, it's another way of doing that.
Wonderful.
So if you want something just for oral histories, this would be a better tool for it because it's customized for that. Okay. Now, if you go back to to install, you just click on install this installation. Application browser again will take you back. And PressBooks is basically an online PressBooks publication where, people can create their own books then that are shared publicly.
Okay.
And if you pay a little bit for it, you can have it converted into a format you can upload to Kindle, and so forth. So it's a way of hosting faculty or student created books, basically.
Got it. Okay.
And Scalar is what I'm trying to think of the best way to, it's what is it called? This, the something web, starts with an S. Basically, it's a
Scholarship online. Scalar enables users to assemble media from multiple sources. Okay, just posting with their own writing variety of ways in the middle. Okay, I got it.
Basically, it allows you to upload text, images, videos, audio files, and create pathways from there. And every point on a path could be another path, and you can have conditional branching. It's the semantic web, I think, is a phrase that's been used to describe Scalar. It's an interesting thing that we did have someone here who worked with it quite a bit, but she's moved up to Canada and we've lost her. But it's a really good tool. It's she had her students use it actually. She was looking at an Oswego author from the 1800s where all of his text was there, but then students annotated with pictures, with history and other things. It's often used to create annotations that can annotate other annotations, and they can be of any format and can include these paths. It's a really sophisticated pathway or system that lets you create different paths. Sure. Now, if you go down further, we've got a whole host of others, many of which I don't know specifically, but there's a series of wikis there. Right up at the very top there, you've got, there's a few wikis built in. You've got chat interfaces, web calendars you can use. You've got a discussion forums you could create, if you want to do an online bulletin board type of thing. You got media wiki, and I'm not sure what PM wiki is, but there's a number of different wikis and chat tools there. A very lightweight wiki released in 2004. So yeah, there's a lot. You can, Drupal is there. So the same thing that's running the college website, you could create your own instance of and create your own web system. You could create your own content management systems there. You could create, there's a number of different blog platforms. There's a code databases. You've got a PHP server there. You could run the Moodle LMS from here. And in fact, they're doing that at SUNY, the one directly north of New York City. I can't think of it offhand, but you could run a whole course management system from here. There's what else? There's e-commerce sites. There was some debate about whether we should allow this or not in a SUNY system, but we kept it in part because there might be people who are doing web development to train, or web courses that design people to create commercial websites. So it's there for that purpose, not to make money from, but just to use the tools to create commercial sites as a demo of how they could be created, basically. You have shopping cart things in there, so you could have digital downloads or download other things. And yeah, there's just so much in there. And there's, I don't know most of them. The only one I've really worked with a lot has been PressBooks.
Yeah. I mean, it would seem crazy to think that one person would know what each and everything is here because there's so many.
Yeah, and you can install other things. These are just the ones that are already automated for direct installation. You could download a package from the web and install it on the server space, but then you have to do all the, you have to do all the back end stuff and create all the linkages and so on yourself. So,
all right, I'm gonna stop sharing that.
So that's it basically. So if you've worked with Omeka before, you now have your own instance.
Wonderful.
And, you can give permissions to other people to edit and all that, just as you would in any other case. And they don't have to have SUNYCreate accounts. They just need to have accounts created on Omeka now. I'm pretty sure. I know that's the way it is for PressBooks.
Without names, do you know of the other faculty or staff that use not necessarily Omeka, but just like other things? I know that you said like primarily it's WordPress, and I'm sure that there are examples of what students and or faculty are using it for on campus. Do you know of any examples that have specifically used SUNYCreate and to design their stuff that's been like in a public way?
The only cases that I really am familiar with who actually carried it through and did a lot and presented on it were Marcia Burrell used it to have students create a textbook. That may have disappeared though when she left. So I'm not positive about that because it is tied to her account there. And Rebecca had her students use it for web development, but I don't think much of that was public other than, within the class. I know there was a class in Comm Studies, but I'm not sure how far they got because they never really presented on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else created anything that was, well, no one else presented on the work. There was a lot of discussions of it and they went through training on it, but I think those were the only two cases of really heavy use, Rebecca's class and Marcia's class.
Yeah. And because the reason why I'm thinking that is like if I'm using it to or if I'm going to show instances of public use beyond the classroom, I'm trying to think like where I can kind of point people to say like, hey, look, this is what it can look like, and this is all created using SUNYCreate sort of situation.
We've done some presentations on it.
Okay.
There wasn't that much use here. I mean, we were heavy users, but it was mostly Rebecca's class.
Got it.
So,
Yep.
because each student had their own account. But
Perfect. Okay.
the Ed Beck's website it probably has the most because he's done it quite a bit at Potsdam.
Okay.
And so he's got various organizations who've used it, and it's being used quite a bit for e-portfolios on his campus. SUNY Geneseo has used it a fair amount.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure they've worked with Omeka quite a bit too, but I'm not absolutely sure. I know they've dabbled with it at least.
Yep. Okay. Wonderful.
Okay, so play with it. And if you have any questions, let me know. And if I can answer it, I can try to figure it out.
Thank you, John, very much for this instructional session today.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't a little better prepared, but I've never worked with Omeka other than, seeing it in demos and playing with it a little bit.
Well, hopefully soon we will have some sort of working version that.
There we go. No, it's a great tool and it's used by a lot of sites. I know that's what the Fashion Institute of Technology uses. I'm almost sure. The fashion history timeline.
Gotcha.
Now I'm serious. I'll put it in chat. I'm pretty sure this is using Omeka, but I'm not absolutely sure. There's a link to it.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Yep. Let's see. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Is a project with a history of art department with support from the Vice President of Academic Affairs, Team Liberal Arts, Team Graduate Studies, and History of Art faculty, including professors, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're using Omeka or if they're using a WordPress.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, I can see that Karen Trevets. I've only virtually met with Karen a couple of times, but she's the archivist there at FIT. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. That's another person I can reach out to see about, this and how that they've designed this. So yeah, thank you. This is wonderful.
Okay. Okay, well, take it easy.
Yeah, I'll give you some time.
Good luck. Let me know how it goes. And
Will
you
do.
can do a workshop presentation on this after you've experimented more.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.